by far my favorite holiday of the year, and it will always remain that way. Since it's the season to be spooky, I thought I'd share my story with you. 2 Halloweens ago, I was out in my backyard with a bunch of my friends. We had set up a projector to the back of my house and were playing horror movies all night long. It's also important to add that my parents were not home at the time and wouldn't be home for another 3 days. So we're all out back, eating pizza and watching these horror movies, when we noticed one of the lights upstairs flick on from the house. I asked my group of friends if anyone had gone into the house, but they all said no, and everyone was accounted for. Since I was home alone without my parents, and all of me and my friends were outside, this raised alarm bells. I paused the movie and we listened. The light was still on, but we did not hear anything come from the house. We all had the mentality that there's strength in numbers, and we decided to all go in and see what turned on the light. When we entered my house, I called out and we listened for a response or any movement. There was none. We started to laugh a bit and thought we were overreacting because it was Halloween night and we were watching scary movies. But that's when we heard the shower turn on. Every one of us grabbed either a knife from the drawers or some kind of blunt object, and we made our way upstairs. The light that was turned on was our bathroom light, which faced our backyard. As we crept closer, we could still clearly hear the shower running. We burst through the door, expecting to attack whoever was in there, but it was empty. The lights were turned on, the shower was running, but it was empty. I turned off the shower and we stood cramped in the bathroom, confused as to what was happening. Then, my one friend who was standing closest to the window yelled out, "Look down there." He was pointing to my backyard. Standing in the middle of the yard, looking up at us and waving, was someone dressed in an all-black robe. I couldn't see their face. We all rushed back downstairs and headed to the backyard. And of course, once we got there was no person in a robe standing there anymore. We started to call all of our other friends to see if any of them were trying to prank us. We FaceTimed all of them, and they were either at another party with their significant others or at home watching TV. And I was so freaked out at this point that I packed up my backyard, and we ended up spending the rest of Halloween at my other friend's house. Never again did we ever run into whoever that was wearing the robe. Halloween is still by far my favorite holiday, but now, whenever it gets close to it, I'm on edge. I only enjoy my fictional horror movies. I don't like living them out in real life. So this happened last Halloween, and it was a complete nightmare. My girlfriend Sarah and I were hanging out at home, handing out candy to the neighborhood kids and watching horror movies. It was a typical Halloween night. Pumpkins on the porch, spooky decorations, the works. We're both big fans of the holiday, so we've been looking forward to it all month. The evening was going pretty smoothly. The kids were adorable, and it was fun to see all different kinds of costumes. We just finished watching Halloween, the original, of course, and we were about to start the sequel when Sarah noticed someone standing across the street. Ironically, it was a guy dressed as Michael Myers. He had the mask, the jumpsuit, the whole thing. He was just standing there, not moving, just staring at her house. We laughed it off at first. It was Halloween after all, and we figured it was just some guy trying to be creepy. But then, he did not move. He just stood there, continuing to stare at us. Minutes passed and he did not even shift his weight. Sarah made a joke about how he was really committed to the role, but I could sense there was a layer of uneasiness in her tone. And after a while, the trick-or-treaters stopped coming, and the neighborhood quieted down. But the guy was still there, standing in the same spot, watching us. By now, it was getting weird. We joked about it less and started to feel genuinely uncomfortable. I thought about calling the police, but it seemed like an overreaction at the time. He wasn't doing anything illegal, just being a creep. Eventually, Halloween came to an end, and it was getting late. We figured the guy would leave once everyone went inside. But no, he stayed put. Midnight came and went, and he did not even budge. I told Sarah I'd go out and tell him to knock it off, thinking he was just some teenager who had a few too many drinks and was trying to freak people out. And as I walked across the street toward him, I had a feeling that I was making a mistake. Something about the way he stood there was just off. I tried to keep it cool and told him to leave, that Halloween was over and the joke wasn't funny anymore. He did not respond. He just stood there, silent and still. I was getting frustrated, so I stepped closer, and that's when it happened. Out of nowhere, he swung his arm, and I felt a sharp pain slice across my forearm. I stumbled back, shocked and suddenly terrified. It wasn't just some kid playing a prank. This guy had an actual knife, and he wasn't messing around. I turned and bolted back to the house as fast as I could, clutching my arm. Blood was soaking through my sleeve by the time I got inside. Sarah freaked out when she saw me. We locked all the doors and called the cops. I was in a daze, barely processing what had happened. When the police arrived, the guy was gone. They searched the neighborhood, but they did not find anyone. It was like he just vanished into thin air. We spent the rest of the night in the ER, where I got a bunch of stitches. The doctor said it was a clean cut, like it had been done with a really sharp knife. The police took a report, but I could tell they did not really believe us. I mean, it sounded crazy. Some guy dressed as Michael Myers attacked me on Halloween night, and then disappeared without a trace. I mean, it's like something out of a bad horror movie. It's been a year now, and they never found the guy. No suspects, no leads, nothing. Sarah and I moved out of that neighborhood not long after. We live in our new home where, thankfully, we've had no issues. It's almost Halloween again this year as I write this. And if I see any kid wearing a Michael Myers costume, I might just lose my shit. Whoever that guy was, he meant to hurt someone, and I was just unlucky enough to be his target. It was Halloween night in 2022, and my best friend and I were out trick-or-treating. It was the first time that we were going alone, but we had a plan. I was supposed to text my mom every few blocks so she'd know where we were. I should mention that I have a disability that makes walking a bit harder, so I use crutches. I can walk fine, just a bit slower, and I never really run unless something's seriously wrong, because it causes too much pain. We were about an hour into the night, and everything was going fine. We were in a quieter neighborhood at this point, one that's not exactly the best part of town, and it was darker here, fewer streetlights, and strangely, there weren't that many people out. My friend said later that it made sense because the neighborhood wasn't great, but it still felt off at the time. I shrugged it off. Then, this old beat-up truck passed by us. I did not think much of it. It's a road. Cars pass by, right? But then it came back around. Same truck, going a bit slower this time. I remember feeling my stomach twist, but I tried to ignore it and enjoy the Halloween night. I did not want to freak out over nothing, so we kept walking, hitting a few more houses for candy. A few minutes later, the truck came around again. This time it felt different, and I could see it in my friend's face too. She noticed. The truck was moving way too slow, like it was watching us. I did not say anything to her right away, but I could feel the anxiety building. By the time the truck circled for the third time, I knew we had to get out of there. I did not even think. I just grabbed my friend's arm and started running. If you know me, you know I don't run. Ever. Not unless I absolutely have to, and my friend knew that too. As soon as I started, she took off with me without asking any questions. We ran as fast as we could, and I was in pain, but adrenaline kept me going. There was a house up ahead with a row of bushes in the front yard, so I pulled her with me and we crouched down behind them. My heart was pounding, and I could hear the truck coming around again. We could see it passing by slowly, but thankfully the driver did not see us. I called my mom right away and told her what was happening. She told us to stay hidden and that she'd come to pick us up. While we were waiting, she told me to take a picture of the truck if it came back again, just in case. A few minutes later, it circled back one more time. I quickly snapped a picture of it on my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I thought the picture would come out blurry, but I got it. My mom showed up not long after, and we bolted to her car, barely saying a word. As soon as we got in, we locked the doors and drove straight home. I don't think I've ever felt so relieved to be inside. The next morning, everything felt normal again, but my mom seemed a little more anxious than usual. She was scrolling through her phone, reading the local news, and her face suddenly went pale. I asked her what was wrong, and she showed me a small article. It was talking about how the police had pulled over a suspicious truck in the same neighborhood that we were the night before. When they searched the vehicle, they found several guns and a bunch of drugs in the trunk. The police were still investigating, but the description of the truck in the article sounded way too familiar. I immediately grabbed my phone and pulled up the picture I took from the night before. My heart dropped when I compared it to the article. It was the same truck, the same one that had circled us multiple times while we were out trick-or-treating. I still get chills thinking about what could have happened if we hadn't run and hidden when we did. When I was in middle school, around 1988 or so, my family decided to go on a Halloween hayride at a nature preserve somewhere in the suburban Chicago area. It was Halloween Day, and my parents thought it would be a fun way to spend the afternoon. The place was packed with families, and the air was crisp and smelled like wet leaves and bonfires. The hayride was exactly what you'd expect for something in the late 80s. No frills, just a tractor pulling a wooden cart filled with hay. We climbed in with about 10 other people, a mix of kids and adults, all bundled up in jackets and scarves. The ride took us deep into the woods, where the trees seemed to swallow up the light. The deeper we went, the more the usual cheesy Halloween props popped up. Fake gravestones, plastic skeletons, and the occasional guy dressed up as a ghoul, jumping out to scare us. And I was sitting towards the back, half expecting the usual tricks. I had already started to get bored when we rounded a bend and saw something new. Hanging from a tree branch, right over the path, was a man. He wore what looked like an old, tattered suit, and his head was tilted at an odd angle. His feet dangled just above the ground. The tractor slowed down as we passed under him, and a few people in the cart laughed nervously, assuming it was just part of the show. The man did not move, and that only added to the eerie effect. One of the kids in the cart threw a handful of hay at him, but he did not even flinch. The tractor kept moving, and the moment passed us by. I remember thinking that the guy was really committed to the role. The rest of the ride was the usual stuff. People in masks, fake blood, someone chasing the cart with a chainsaw. It wasn't until the next day that everything clicked. My mom was reading the newspaper at the kitchen table when she let out a sharp gasp. She turned to my dad and said, "Listen to this." She started reading an article aloud about a man who had hung himself at a nature preserve the night before, sometime between the evening hayrides. The kicker was, No one realized it at first. The people on the hayride thought it was just part of the Halloween show. And it wasn't until hours later that someone figured out what had really happened. And I couldn't believe it. That man hanging in the tree, the one I thought was just some actor, he was dead. I tried to process it, but it didn't make sense. It felt surreal, like it couldn't have actually happened, but it did. I still think about it sometimes, how close we all were to something so dark and real, yet none of us noticed. We just laughed it off as part of the fun, and that's what haunts me the most, how easily reality blurred with the staged horror, and how we all missed the truth hanging right in front of us. Hey, what's up guys, it's Spooky. If you've made it this far, congratulations, you survived. If you did not know, I have an Instagram. Follow me on there so we can connect. I also have a Patreon. On there you'll have direct access to me and can see the upcoming videos, polls, and soon-to-be exclusive stories only shared on there. If that's something that interests you, please consider joining. That's all I have for you guys tonight. Stay spooky and I'll see you in the next video.